Hello, everybody. Welcome in the Crease with your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus and my friend and co-host, Shane Brislin. Shane, our triple threat hockey expert, is here to break down every piece of big news in the hockey world. And Shane, there are some big pieces of news in the hockey world right now. Count them, 2 massive trades that took place just over the weekend on Friday. Quinn Hughes traded not to his brothers in New Jersey, but to Minnesota. That is huge for the Wild, who get a big win over the Capitals tonight. Shutout fashion, most likely. That game still going on as we speak. Other big news, the U.S. and Canadian Olympic rosters are due on New Year's Day, January 1st. We'll go through a little bit of the players that have been officially announced, some snubs we expect, and what the rest of the roster fill-out might be. And of course, in the Crease, we always take a look at the standings to close out the show. Who's number 1 in the Atlantic right now? I mean, what's going on over there? We'll talk about all of that and more. But before we do, Shane, how's life treating you up in Pittsburgh?
I'm just trying to enjoy not having school for a month, and then it's going to be back on the grind. But, enjoying a hockey game, got to see the other trade that happened on Friday come to fruition, the Skinner-Jari trade. And let me tell you, just a preview into that, it does not make a fucking difference who was in net.
Does not make a difference. And you know what? We kind of knew this was going to happen, but let's not bury the lead here, Shane. Let's not lead our horses to a dried up well here. There was a bigger trade that took place on Friday, and it involved your Minnesota Wild, Quinn Hughes, one of the best defensemen in all of the National Hockey League, traded for what is a pretty big haul, a first-round pick and 3 young players. Break down this trade for me. What are the big assets going back in return? Quinn Hughes is a known asset, but a lot of these young guys aren't quite as widely known. Break down this trade. How do you see it going?
So as a Wild fan, of course, I have a more insight than the average fan into how good these pieces are that Vancouver is receiving. I think Vancouver got a very good deal compared to what else was offered by other teams. Pretty much from what I've heard, they were asking for a center, a defenseman, like a prospect and a first round pick. And the Wild were the first ones to pony up everything they asked for. And they are players that are young, still have potential that is left to give. And some of these players have the highest ceilings of any other players that were offered, for whether it be New Jersey or Buffalo or whatever other teams were offered. So all these guys were previous first round picks. So you could say they pretty much got 4 first round picks for Quinn Hughes.
Which is
so let's
crazy.
Start off. Yeah.
Like the people call this a blockbuster deal. I've been seeing a lot of, internet, a lot of people reacting on Twitter all around the internet. People don't understand how big of a trade this is, not just because Quinn Hughes got moved, but because guys like Zeev Buium.
I've seen so many people butcher these players' names over the past week.
He's the future at defense, though. That's the big piece. There's really
a lot
good
of hype behind him.
I mean, and the other 2 pieces that went, including a first-round pick, aren't nothing in and of itself. This is an all-in push. Honestly, my reaction, this feels really short-sighted for the Wild. Quinn Hughes is great, but you're not re-signing him. Don't kid yourself. The Wild aren't going to...
I don't know.
Have
you seen the press conference? He made it seem like he's pretty open to staying with the Wild. I think the rumors about him going to New Jersey is a little bit overblown. I think it's just people kind of like wanting that fan service of all these brothers playing together. And it's just not realistic with, you got to fit the cap space into it. Like, he's going to overshadow his brother Luke Hughes. He's got to think he's going to take away that opportunity. And it's just kind of like being closer to all your family is going to cause more drama than if you were doing your own separate thing. And the Wild have a great thing going over here. The guys have bought in. They have a really good team. You get to play with a Kirill Kaprizov. which is a pretty good end of the deal. But like I said, let's not get too far off track with what Vancouver received. So my first reaction was I think I was just too emotionally sentimental towards some of these guys because I love Marco Rossi. He's a short king. He almost um, over COVID he contracted the disease and he actually almost died because of a heart complication. Um, so no matter what people say about, not to get too political, no matter what people said about how the quarantine was handled, it's situations like that where we needed to make sure that happened as little as possible because you never know who it might affect. But thank God he recovered quickly and then was able to get back up to speed and have a really good start to his NHL career. He had 60 points last season. A lot of people will complain that it was because he was playing with a Kirill Kaprizov, but he really stepped up when he was injured for half of that season, taking reps on the power play, just being that net front guy who got a bunch of dirty goals. He's sneaky smart. He has very subtle skills that you see in the middle of a game where he makes that subtle pass or that subtle move that opens up just enough space. I see him as like a second line center that would complement an Elias Pettersson
Mm.
if he gets back to what Elias Pettersson could potentially be. Liam Ogren, he hasn't really done anything at the NHL level yet. It's kind of like magic beans at this point. He may be something, he may not. He's a first round pick, so he's got potential. So like who knows? But former first round pick. He's only 23. So, or I think he's only 21 actually. So there's still talent there. But the big piece and what everyone's already calling the Quinn Hughes replacement is Zeev Bouillon.
Right.
And then there's a lot of hype behind this guy because he has won at every level he's played at. So he has 2 World Junior Championships. He has an NCAA championship with the University of Denver. And then he went to the World Cup and won there. And that was the first time the U.S. has won in that tournament for like decades. So this guy just wins everywhere he goes. And based off the snippets I saw of him, like you can tell he's a rookie. Like he made some mistakes. You can tell he's going against grown men and he's not used to that. And he's kind of bouncing off these heavier players. But you see the potential in his confidence. He's very dynamic, very shifty with the puck. Will he be a Quinn Hughes level player? Let's like Quinn Hughes is
That's
like
tough.
legitimately best in the world. So let's keep our expectations tempered. But I think he could easily flirt with being your power play guy, being that 50 point defenseman for like years on end, quarterbacking your power play and also getting in on the penalty kill, that do it all type of player.
Right.
But
He's the
Quinn
future.
Hughes, yeah.
He's the future.
So
It's not just him is the thing, because you've got him as the Quinn Hughes replacement. Obviously, not one for one, but he's going to fill that slot in a really nice way that they're not going to feel like they're at a huge loss at the position. And like you mentioned, you add 2 forwards, one established, one a little bit unestablished, but high prospect pool over there. This feels like a home run for the Vancouver Canucks. They get off a lot of salary, a guy that they clearly weren't planning to re-sign. I like the way they're going. Quick little rebuild for the Canucks.
Yeah. So Quinn Hughes made it clear, or his agent made it clear, that he wanted out. It just wasn't working over there. Vancouver was struggling. Vancouver's always been that team where I'm like, they're so good on paper. Like, I want to see them make that jump. Like 2 years ago, they had JT Miller, they had Elias Lindholm, they had a very promising future. It just kind of just fell apart with stuff that happened behind the scenes and drama that was happening that we don't really understand the full picture of. But what has happened has happened. There did an overhaul on the roster and adding these young players that you can have for years on end to start anew is a very promising sign. But let's get to the big fish in the trade, Quinn Hughes.
Big fish.
I don't think people understand how good of a player he is. Legitimately, best defenseman in the league if you don't count Cale Makar.
Yeah.
He's so dynamic. He's so smooth with the puck. Whenever he always seems to have the puck on a stick, and he always seems to make the right play with it. He's so smooth. He can escape any forward check. He's an efficient passer. It looks like he's effortlessly gliding on the ice and just spinning away from any trouble. I watched that Boston Bruins game, and it was amazing how much of a difference that one player made. And he can lug minutes, play 27 minutes a night. He's already leading the NHL in ice time per game. I don't see that changing. And I love how ballsy of a move this is. This is a win now move because you can be like, oh, you gave up all these futures. You gave up all this potential these guys turn into. But like potential doesn't mean shit. You can keep on saying potential, potential, potential. But if it doesn't turn into anything, you have nothing. So unless you cash in your chips on a player who's already a proven commodity and you want to win now, you get a player like Quinn Hughes. And that doesn't happen that often in the NHL when a player like Quinn Hughes, legitimately one of the best in the position group, you go and get that guy. Like besides first line center, you need your number one power play defenseman. That is the second most important position on a Stanley Cup contender. And Quinn Hughes is that guy. I watched this video of that hockey guy on YouTube, and he's a Vancouver fan. And he said, I think Minnesota fleeced us. And he was saying that as a Vancouver fan. Yeah, he has bias towards his superstar player. But big if, it's still a lot of time before that happens. But if Quinn Hughes resigns, then I think both teams have a really good deal that we've had forward here.
That's
And
the
I want to
big
say,
if. That's the
yeah,
big if he resigns, because there's no way that Minnesota does this deal, at least with where they're at right now, with where the Western Conference is. I don't think I don't think they should be thinking, at least, that they're a Quinn Hughes away from winning a cup this season. I feel like there's more problems with this Wild team than adding Quinn Hughes, and he's going to help them. He's going to push them to that upper echelon, but I don't know if it makes them cup contenders this year. So unless they're signing him back, it's a lot to give up for half of a year of Quinn Hughes.
like I completely agree. The center depth concerns me. Our forward scoring depth concerns me. But when you have great goaltending, that can overshadow that
That
flaw.
is
Like
true.
our goaltending has been spectacular. So it's just like you don't need your depth to score if your guys get it done and you just don't let any pucks in. But that aside, I would like to see another move for a top six forward. And if Quinn Hughes leaves, it's not because of money. Um, we showed that with Kirill Kaprizov. We gave him the largest contract in NHL history. I think our owner will give the next biggest contract in NHL history just to keep Quinn Hughes if he wants to stay. So I am very confident in our ownership group, and like money is not being a factor. We've got contracts coming off the books, like, and the cap is only going up. Like we will fit Quinn Hughes in. It's just a matter of if he wants to stay.
And Minnesota's going to give him a good time. They're going to make sure that he's happy over there. Otherwise, they failed at their job. The Minnesota Wild here are kind of fringe on the playoffs. How much better does it make them? We just talked about how they're probably not cup contenders, but how far does Quinn Hughes take this team? What were they before in the 50% scenario versus what they are now in that same 50% scenario?
I think fringe playoff team is only because we are in the toughest division in hockey. When you have the two-headed monster of the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche leading your division, it's just tough being the third best team. And I think a lot of people will agree that we are the third best team on paper, even though we just beat those two teams these past 2 weeks in the regular season. But I think you're really downplaying the Wild. I think we are now legitimately Stanley Cup contenders. Like we have our superstar forward in Kirill Kaprizov. We have had spectacular goaltending. We have the argument for having the deepest defensive core now that we have a Quinn Hughes. You know, Matthew Boldy's a stud. like we are Stanley Cup contenders. It's just getting through the bloodbath that is the Western Conference is the biggest concern. And I I believe a lot in this team. It's going to be a tough first two rounds because Colorado, Dallas, and then once you get past those guys, it's either Vegas or the Oilers.
Right. And that's a gauntlet. That really is. I'm not as high on the Wild clearly, but I do definitely think this pushes them I think into a competition with the Stars and the Avs. Like that is huge. I think the Avs and the Stars still a little bit better than them, but you can talk about them in the same sentence with Quinn Hughes on this team, and he's already paying huge dividends. 2 games in, they're 2-0. He scores a goal in his first game as a Minnesota Wild. They now shut out the Capitals, who had been red hot, win 5-0. That game officially in the books. This is a much different looking Wild team with Quinn Hughes. They've got a lot more freedom out there on the ice. Kirill Kaprizov has more help. They need that. They need that bad. He still needs a lot of help. And that's the main reason why I don't think they're cup contenders here. I don't know where the scoring is going to come from. Hughes will provide some scoring. Kirill Kaprizov's going to give you scoring, but where is the rest of that scoring going to come from? In the playoffs, depth is so important, and you just talked about it. That's where they're severely lacking right now.
Yeah, the bottom 6 is a concern, but there's still plenty of time to make a move at the deadline. We still have more picks and prospects that we can shed out for players.
This does seem early for a trade, and maybe my sports calendar is like a little bit decalibrated right now because so much is going on in the sports world, but this seems early for trades to start popping off in the NHL. Am I off on that, or is this something that we're going to start to see earlier and earlier trades start to happen?
Yeah, that's a great observation. This is definitely a trend in the NHL where trades are happening earlier because if you're going to make a move, they want players here earlier to develop that chemistry as soon as possible. You saw with the Mikko Rantanen trade about how trading early allows you to pivot if things aren't working out. So he played a few games in Carolina. They just wasn't vibing with it, and then they were able to get a haul back. So I think on top of that, like if you're going to make a big move, you want to do it now. It's just so you still have time. If it doesn't work out, you have the trade deadline, or you can just develop more chemistry and you have more games to see what your team has.
We'll have to see. But that wasn't the only big trade that took place, right? Quinn Hughes, obviously the headliner, but a goalie trade took place at the game you were at. Skinner for Jarry. 1-for-1, basically. That I'm gonna be so honest with you.
Yeah,
that's nothing. Look, the way that Jarry was playing early in the season, it was better. And we've seen Jarry go on these runs before. He's won a cup with Pittsburgh. He took over the starting spot.
He didn't win a cup. He didn't win a cup with Pittsburgh.
Oh, he didn't win the cup. That's right. He took them deep into the playoffs, though.
No, he didn't.
Who am I thinking of?
He's an infamous playoff choker. Like after the cup runs, the Penguins haven't gone on a deep cup run since.
Who am I thinking of? The guy after Andre Fleury. That's
Jarry.
Yeah.
It was Matt Murray and Jarry.
Matt Murray. That's what it
was.
Matt
Murray fell off the cliff because of injuries. And Jarry's been, he's a solid regular season goaltender. He's like a 2-time All-Star within like the past 5 years. It's just he's been awful in the playoffs. He got pulled after one game versus the Rangers because he had such a terrible game. Casey DeSmith became a starter. And then his really bad game was against the Islanders, I want to say in 2021. It was game 5, and we've talked about how pivotal it is to win that game 5. It's series tied 2-2, went to double overtime. He turned the puck over while trying to play it behind the net, and they scored to get that double overtime win. I want to say the Islanders ended up winning in 6 games on their back-to-back runs to the Eastern Conference Final.
Yep. I got Matt Murray on the brain here, but this is kind of a nothing of a trade. Stuart Skinner's not great, but he's not bad.
It's funny how these goalies are the inverse of each other because I've grew up being in Pittsburgh right now. You just naturally keep up with the Penguins, and Jarry is one of the reasons why the Penguins got off to such a hot start. and they have been competitive up to this point. He was awful last season. He was sent down to the AHL. One of the biggest criticisms is you could have got him for nothing because he was dropped down on waivers. But he's had a really good start to the season. He's up there he's like 15 or top 10 at one point with saves above expected. So analytically, he's been a really good goaltender for a team that was constantly getting outshot in the beginning of the season. It's like one of the only predictions I've gotten right so far is that the Penguins will fall off because this is not sustainable. And he's a better regular season goalie than Skinner. But Skinner has proven that he can show up in the playoffs while Jarry hasn't. So it is interesting to see that difference where instead of your proven playoff performer in Skinner, where he played phenomenally against the Dallas Stars in the Eastern Conference Finals to help you get to the Cup Finals, you've seen at times in the regular season where his numbers fall off a cliff, where Jarry has been shown to be more consistently good in the regular season, but he's got a really large contract at $5 million. Skinner's a UFA at the end of the season. You have Jarry for another 3, like this season plus 2 more at like $5 million. So it's just kind of like, in my eyes, they're kind of like the same. I feel like they're the same tier. Like, yeah, Jarry may be a B plus instead of a B minus goaltender, but for giving up, 2029 second, whatever. And then like an extra adding more stuff with a 1-to-1 goalie trade that I think they're basically the same while also not having to take on that cap space. I think the Penguins win this easily.
The big thing with this trade is the why now. And the why now is Connor McDavid signed a team-friendly contract, and he's given you 2 years to make this team a cup winner, right? He's given you a deadline, a timeline to make this cup winner. But why couldn't you do this before? Why couldn't you see this before Connor McDavid gave you this ultimatum of sorts? And I'm sure there was some real ultimatum made, but the public ultimatum is team-friendly short-term contract. You have to get this done in time, right? Why now? Why couldn't they go out and get, and we talked about this when this first happened, a guy like John Gibson, who was rumored to be on the trade block forever when he was really good with the Ducks, right? A guy like Markstrom, who was traded last trade deadline to the Devils. There are guys that have been and potentially will be available. Maybe you could swing a trade for a UC Saros out there who has struggled the last couple seasons, but a change of scenery could get him back to his Vezina kind of form. There are a lot of great goalies that you could get, and instead you settle for mid. I have been on the Oilers about getting a goalie forever. Forever I've been on them about getting a goalie. That's why they can't win the cup. That's why they keep coming up short. And this is their big move. It's just more disappointing than anything. I'm not mad. It's in a vacuum. It's a fine trade. Nothing major negative, nothing major positive. It's fine. But when you take the context of everything, it's infuriating. I don't know what this front office is doing.
I want to go back to pumping the tires of the Minnesota Wild. When you want your team to contend, you want them to push all the chips on the table and go for that fucking superstar, right? I think the Oilers fan base wanted a player like UC Saros who has the pedigree of being nominated multiple times for a Vezina and has shown that he can put up those kind of numbers to be in the conversation with the Hellebucks of the NHL. They wanted them to put all of their chips on a guy like that, not an inconsistent goaltender in Tristan Jarry, because you go from one inconsistent goaltender to another. You want your GM to make a move like the Wild, be like, give me the best fucking player in the league, give me the best fucking player available. We're going all in. And this is kind of just like kind of half-ass put some chips, but still holding back.
This is their all-in, though. Like we said, there's been an ultimatum given. The best player in the world said, you have 2 years. Win me a cup or I'm leaving. That's how I read that contract, at least. Or 3 years, excuse me.
Because he signed the extension for the next 2 seasons. So he has this year on top of 2 more.
He gave you, or that's how I read the contract. He gave you that ultimatum, and you said, all right, I understand. I'm going to make an improvement at goaltender. And this is the best you could come up with?
Yeah. Because it's like, Picard was the worst goaltender. Like, Skinner was okay, but Picard was the one that was truly awful. If you wanted to add some more depth to the goaltending position, get rid of Picard, not somebody who's well-liked in the locker room and has got you to the finals in back-to-back years. Who's only getting paid like $2-something million per year. Like, if you wanted Jarry, I'm sure the Penguins would have like retained salary because they're trying to tank. At least they looked like it tonight. and they're trying to get as many, like, tell them to retain the contract, and you take Kulak, and then the cap evens out. Like, I don't understand. There was ways around it. Right. Where you didn't have to get rid of Skinner and like sacrifice potentially the locker room and your goaltending depth.
Right. Like, there are better options. If you don't need if you're getting a Tristan Jarry level guy, there's plenty of guys like that out there. Plenty of them. Trade for Charlie Lindgren from the Capitals, right? I think he's better than Tristan Jarry. He's more consistent, at least, I'll say. And I trust him more if I know Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to get me 5 goals a game, I would rather have Lindgren in net than Jarry, honestly. Because I think he's going to only let in 3 a game, you know? He's going to let him in. But he's not going to give up 7 goals most of the time. Like, Jarry has a night where he can shut you down, shut you out, but then he'll give up 8 the next night. Like, it's the same thing. Same inconsistencies with Skinner as well, with Picard as well. We've seen Picard lock in the playoffs, and we've also seen him get blown up in the playoffs, right? We've seen this before. We've seen this movie before. This doesn't do anything for me, and I don't know what the Oilers are doing. If this really is their all-in push, this is the most limp-wristed all-in push I've ever seen in my entire life.
Again, this is the same general manager and Stan Bowman who traded Artemi Panarin away, who thought that was a good idea. So a lot of Blackhawks fans will tell you that when they saw the Oilers sign this guy, that they thought McDavid's not going to win a cup with the Oilers because Stan Bowman has been infamously an awful general manager.
Yeah.
He pretty much ended the Blackhawks dynasty. Like, Alain Vigneault, sorry, that's not the right guy, but the current Florida general manager or president of hockey operations, he pretty much built the core in Chicago and then left to pursue the job in Florida, and then built another potential dynasty in the Florida Panthers by drafting all those core players. Like, Stan Bowman just kind of walked into the situation where he's like, oh, I already have a Stanley Cup caliber team. I just need to tweak a few things here and there, and they're still going to be Stanley Cup contenders. And then he proceeds to fuck it up by having an Artemi Panarin fall in your lap, and he was just like, he wants too much money. Goodbye. We'll take Brandon Saad. So I'm also, like, again, Wild fan, hate the Chicago Blackhawks, hate everything Stan Bowman related. So it's just like, I'm not the only one, even with my bias, who's not thrilled about Stan Bowman being the guy making the calls. But enough about the Oilers. I'm kind of curious to hear what your perspective from like a Penguins side of things.
This doesn't move me from the Penguins. Like I said, this trade in general, like in a vacuum, this trade, if I'm a hockey casual and I see Jarry for Skinner, I say, oh, okay. And
but you get a second and a defenseman that you could potentially also flip at the deadline for more picks.
Again, like this just isn't this. What really are they going to get for these guys? They're not going to get anything major. Sure, maybe they can get a third round pick. Maybe they can get.
You never know what those picks turn into.
You're right. You never know what those picks turn into. But
because
also,
the more
most
darts
of the
you have to throw at the dartboard, and then you can use that to like trade up or down.
We can do a trade tree revisited in 5 years when these draft picks are made.
I'm just saying, if you're a team that is on the decline and looking to retool, you pretty much got a same caliber goalie and a few other assets. So in my mind, you won the trade.
Yeah, they won this trade big time.
Penguins end.
They absolutely won this trade, but it's not like they won this trade so hard that I'm like, wow, I can't believe the Penguins just fleeced the Oilers.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to see like, okay, so you're just not.
I'm not moved by either side of the deal, but
not compared to when you have a Quinn Hughes trade on the same day.
Right. Well, I mean, even then, it's just the Oilers made a move because they kind of had to. That was why this is a big move. This is really a nothing of a trade, except for the context of Connor McDavid said, "Build me a cup contender," and this is their solution.
And then you have a goalie under contract for another 2 more years.
Right. So who knows if he even stays there for 2 more years. I would not be shocked if he wasn't in an Oilers uniform for 2 more seasons. Anything can happen in the NHL. But those are the big trades that have happened so far. What's the next name? What's the next name to go? Who's the next big guy that gets traded before the deadline?
The problem is this free agency class has already been like shot to hell. The other 2 names that I've heard been floating around are Alex Tuch, because he's got 1 more year left in Buffalo at just below $5 million a year. So if you are looking for a top 6 forward, and Buffalo's on their 13th rebuild this century, if they can get some assets for him, that's a big one. I've heard Tage Thompson rumors getting floated out there. He's on a really good team-friendly deal. I just don't know why you would trade a guy like that.
I think Buffalo fans would riot if Tage Thompson got traded. That's the only reason
Jack
to go to
Eichel
games.
all over again. It's just like, okay, this guy gets traded away and then is going to win a Stanley Cup just because it's a team-friendly deal and you're trading away the best player. Generally, you lose that trade.
Right.
And then another one I think is the sneakier move is Rasmus Andersson for the Calgary Flames. He's a right shot, top 4 defenseman. He's like more known for his defensive renown, but he's got a bomb of a shot. He was pretty good in the runs Calgary had when they had Johnny Gaudreau to Chuck, that infamous pairing. If you're looking to shore up your blue line, that's kind of the guy I've been hearing floating around. Not too much in the goaltender market besides UC Saros, but he's got a big contract and a no-move clause, so it's going to be more difficult to move him. But those are some of the guys that are still lingering.
All right, we'll have to see. These are good prognostications from our hockey guy, Shane Brisland. We got more of them coming, though, because the U.S. and Canadian Olympic rosters, Shane, they are getting set in the next couple of weeks. Next 2 or 3 weeks, the Canadian and U.S. Olympic rosters will be set. We're seeing some names start to trickle out from around each of these teams, right? The usual suspects, the guys you would expect to be announced, are basically official at this point, but we need to fill out the rest of it, Shane. You want to start with Canada or you want to start with the U.S.?
Let's go with Canada. So they've already announced their first 6, and it consisted of guys you would expect. Nathan McKinnon, the reigning MVP, Connor McDavid, McJesus, as some refer to him as, Sidney Crosby, he's Unk status GOAT, Sam Reinhart, back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, Cale Makar, best defenseman in the league. So, Canada is already off to a really good start with those guys, but it's kind of like The big controversy is do you go with the young, talented players that are putting up points, or do you go with the more proven commodity veteran players?
If there's
Um,
anything we've seen from Canada over the last year, and specifically more with that Four Nations Cup face-off team, they're going with the established players. They know who they have. They know who they like. This is a team that's been largely the same, at least with the same stars, for the last couple of iterations. You're going to see a lot of the same guys on this team. A lot of these top tier guys on this Canadian team, and I think they're going with the older guys rather than the more new guys.
yeah, because the argument is it's like, you're young, you have your whole career ahead of you, you'll be there for the next one. But, that's just not fun though, Jeremy.
That's
I
boring.
want I want to see Bedard and Celebrini. Like, imagine how cool that is.
That would be so. Oh my god, you can have a whole passing of the torch moment if you let those
Yeah.
guys in, because
They're
this
more
is
skilled.
the end for Sidney Crosby. I can't imagine he plays on another Olympic team. I can't imagine it. Maybe he can. I can't
I
picture it.
think Sidney Crosby could be withering away, and Canada will have him on the roster out of solidarity because he's their golden boy.
Sidney Crosby could have one toe and still make the Olympic roster. It doesn't matter. Sidney Crosby.
He's a Canadian national treasure, but he's still a solid player. He can still produce. He's a good distributor. But anyway, I'm just kind of curious. Do you have so at least in no particular order, I have like Brandon Hagel, like Mitch Marner, Brad Marchand, Nick Suzuki, Bo Horvat, Mark Scheifele, and Tom Wilson. And then I have Celebrini and Bedard as my healthy scratches because, I want fun. I want them to be there, be around that kind of culture. So, like, seeing them, like, given the torch to be passed to kind of thing.
Tom Wilson is an interesting one because he's not a guy that made the team in the Four Nations Cup. But the season he's having right now, leading the Capitals in goals, in points, he's been amazing. It's hard not to take him on the roster, but at the same time, they've shown that they like to do that. Tom Wilson wasn't having a bad year last year at all, and he still got left off the roster. Same thing with, and we'll get to goaltenders later, but same thing with the goaltenders. Logan Thompson off the roster. If he doesn't make the roster this year, I'm going to throw something at someone, specifically the guy that makes the Canadian rosters.
I have some words about that, but let's save that once we're done with the forwards and defensemen, because I know both of us need to let out some cathartic rage for the disrespect to LT.
Because he's been amazing. Doesn't matter. Let's start. Let's dig in.
I want to finish up with the Tom Wilson thoughts. So I don't know if you've heard about all the drama with the Olympic ice being smaller than NHL dimensions because Italy fucked up or somebody fucked up.
They fixed that, though, I thought.
Who knows? But if the ice is legitimately going to be smaller by like 2 feet or whatever than the NHL dimensions, then you don't have as much room to move around. And Team USA has the fucking Ducks. If I'm going against the Ducks, I want a Tom fucking Wilson on my team because not only can he score, he can beat the shit out of those two. Because those two are going to hit everything that moves and play like pieces of shit. If they're going to play like pieces of shit, I mean piece of shit as the biggest compliment in the world. I want my own piece of shit and Tom Wilson to counteract that. If they're going to have their big boys, I want my big boy in this arms race, and just so they can better compete with those guys. Because I understand the argument behind not having Celebrini or Bedard because they're just going to get bullied by the Ducks just because they're not big enough to compete with their physicality.
But Olympic hockey is a lot less physical than NHL hockey, just in general.
This is the first time NHL players are being allowed there in over a decade. But they are going to play their asses off. They're going to be playing with emotion. It's going to be physical.
But it's going to be less physical. We saw how physical it was at the Four Nations Cup. we saw how physical it was at the Four Nations
Yeah,
Cup. That
it's going to be the Four Nations.
it's that was incredibly physical, but you're going to see a lot of these players. I think a lot of them got it out in the Four Nations Cup. As much as big of a
No,
deal as it
no,
is to be
Jeremy.
on this Olympic team, the Olympic ice is generally less physical, right? And I think we're seeing a lot of the emotion. You mentioned it. These guys have been barred from international play because of the NHL schedule for over a decade. And we
Do you
saw
know
them
what
get
happens
back
when you
out there,
bottle up
hit each other.
emotion? They've had this bottled up for 14 years.
And a
And
lot of
you're
them got
telling
it out.
me it's not going to be no, that's just the beginning.
We'll see. We'll see.
It's a smaller rink. There's going to be more collisions. And you have the fucking T'Chucks on Team USA. It's going to be physical whether you like it or not.
I like it physical, Shane. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan. I'm a big fan of that style of hockey.
And don't get me wrong, your Latvias and Germanys, they're not going to be physical, but the US brand of hockey is punch you in the mouth kind of hockey.
That's fun to watch, and we like to see that. Any big snubs from the forward class? You brought up the young guys, probably going to make the roster, but who's a big snub? A guy that you think might be off the roster, other than Celebrini, other than a guy. I think Bedard will make it. He's a big name. I think he'll make it on.
Wyatt Johnston is a one where it hurt to cut him because he's been so good for the Dallas Stars. I just feel like the veterans in the Bo Horvats and the Mark Scheifele's and the leadership and a Nick Suzuki, and then Seth Jarvis I have in there as like a locker room guy, who can like play and work his ass off. I feel like he fits the role of a bottom six better. And then Brad Marchand, he's going to show up in those big situations. So I just didn't have space for Wyatt Johnston if I wanted to keep the Celebrini and the Bedards to pass the torch. And then an interesting name cut for the forward is Morgan Geekie. If last year no one would have whispered his name for Team Canada, but now he's like the leading goal scorer in the NHL. And it's just like, do you add him to the roster? And I'm just like, I don't know if this is just a flash in the pan, if he's the next Jordan Chichu, where he scores 50 goals in 1 year and then just dips. I don't trust that for a second. But It's fun to have him in the conversation. As you see, it's a body of work thing to make this roster. Like, if there's already talks about Celebrini and Bedard not making it just because of the body of work they don't have yet, I don't think you give it to Morgan Geekie, who's older and kind of has come out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Geekie makes the roster. He doesn't have that established stardom. And as much as that's kind of a dumb way to make the team, this is a close your eyes dream team kind of thing, because you don't know how these guys are going to play together. A lot of times they're going to get together and you're going to have your all-star teams, but that's what this is. If you don't have a name, you're probably not going to make the team in 9 times out of 10, especially if it's a close one with a guy that does have a name. Moving over to the defenseman here a little bit, Shane. You've got Cale Makar, obviously headlining this group. The best defenseman in the world. Drew Doughty probably makes it final year. He probably gets that respect there. But there's a couple of old guys that I don't know are going to be the best option, kind of like a Drew Doughty. There's a couple guys out there that I think are really good, but probably get snubbed for legacy picks in the defenseman rakes. How are you reading this defensive room?
Do you have any defensemen you're referring to?
I
can't think of an older defenseman who who's a legacy that you'd put in over some of these guys.
I've seen a lot of, again, I go through the rosters here, see what other people are saying. I've seen a lot of Devon Taves out there, which is crazy to me.
Because it's in these short tournaments, it's hard to build up chemistry right away. And so you kind of just choose guys who already have chemistry with each other already. And I'm kind of indifferent to the Tays one, where he played well in Four Nations. I thought he complemented the stars pretty well. So like I don't mind that. He's in his prime. Um, I have Josh Morrissey, number one defenseman for the Jets, Shea
Mm-hmm.
Theodore, top defenseman for Vegas, Drew Doughty, and then I have Jacob Chicherin in this.
I love that.
I'm making my top
I
six
love that so much. Top
because
six.
I'm like the dude has a bomb from the point.
He does.
Like he's played really well for the Capitals. He's feisty. He'll get in there. I like him with these groups of players. And then my scratches, I have Evan Bouchard. I feel like it's kind of a redundancy because you already have a lot of really good offensive defensemen on this roster. I'm going more for fun than like practical because he'll probably get taken for a defensive defenseman. And then I have Matthew Schaefer, the 18-year-old first overall pick. But like I said, my theme is you have these guys on the roster just so you can be a part of the team and carry the torch into the next tournament. But what pisses me off is I'm seeing a lot of Colton Parayko. Like, have you seen how shit the Blues have been? Like, he hasn't been good. Like, I know the team around him isn't good, but he hasn't been helping much either. And it's just like, yeah, he's big. And yeah, you already had him for the Four Nations. But there are better players available. So I wouldn't touch Parayko with a 10-foot pole. Like maybe in a minor role, he's much better suited, but I'm just kind of not sold on him. And then Travis Sanheim is probably going to get replaced with Evan Bouchard. The thing is, Team Canada doesn't have a lot of right shot defensemen, and Parayko kind of fits what they're looking for in a right shot defenseman. So I feel like he's going to make the roster.
Gotta fit the
regardless.
mold there. You've got to fit
Yeah.
the mold. I think he'll make the roster. I've got him on my roster.
Oh, I just saw Thomas Harley. I really like Thomas Harley. I kind of want to see that would be a fun pick. I just don't know if he's going to make the cut.
We'll see. We'll see. Thomas Harley could be fun up there from the Dallas Stars in Canada. But the goalies, we teased it a little bit, Shane. We teased it a little bit. Let's get to this because I don't know what I'll do if Logan Thompson doesn't make this roster. He was scratched. He didn't make the Four Nations Cup, which was wrong right away, first of all. He should have made that Four Nations Cup. He is a beast, and people are rightfully recognizing that. People are seeing his talent this year with the Washington Capitals. He's thrust himself into the spotlight. So I don't think there's a way that they can ignore him this year. But they seem to have a hard-on for Jordan Binnington somewhere. I don't understand it. He'll still make the team.
Because you won a cup.
I don't care.
There's
so many players that have won cups. Aiden Hill won a cup. Like,
yeah. Like, you gotta love NHL players and their narratives. It's fucking stupid.
Like Binnington has those
Logan
moments,
Thompson. Sorry,
but he's not the best Canadian goalie out there anymore.
Logan Thompson has been the best goalie in the calendar year.
Yeah.
There has been no better Canadian goalie than Logan Thompson. Like this season, he is, I want to say, the Vezina frontrunner.
Yeah, and it hasn't really been
you
particularly
are actively
close.
shooting yourself, not even in the foot. You're not shooting yourself in the foot. You're cutting off your entire leg if you don't have Logan Thompson on the roster. I don't know what petty bullshit that's rumored going around with the assistant coaches Bruce Cassidy and Peter DeBoer. They were both on Vegas at some point, and they're like coaches for the Olympic team. I don't know what the fuck he did in Vegas, but if you can't get over that shit that happened 3-4 years ago, like, figure it the fuck out. This is the Olympics. This is for your country. Put your petty bullshit aside. He was a fucking 20-year-old. Like, give him a fucking break. He's the best goalie in the world. Put him on the roster.
Yeah, and I would be shocked if he didn't. For what it's worth, I'd be shocked if he didn't make the roster. Last year was a little bit more of a toss-up because he had a down year and then started playing well again and you didn't know. But this year, Shane, we go to Canada. We go up to Canada, we go up to the Canadian Olympic roster office, and we knock down that door. If Logan Thompson does not make it, book it. It's happening.
Who are your other two goalies?
Their other two goalies, I think Binnington makes it as that backup.
Yeah, I'll give Bennington just because, like, fine, he won the Four Nations. He can be he's been clutch under pressure before, like, fine. But so who's your other guy?
Darcy Kemper? I don't know. There's the Canadians don't really have too many elite goalies.
It's a coin toss between Darcy Kemper and Mackenzie Blackwood. Like, again, Darcy Kemper, Stanley Cup champion. Like, why doesn't he get the same recognition as a fucking Binnington?
That's because they know that he's overrated.
Yeah, it's either him or Mackenzie Blackwood. But I'm not. It's just you need to have LT.
Not even a question. Like, it has to happen. Like, they would legitimately be stupid for doing that. And there's a lot of things they'd be stupid for, but that is one of the biggest ones. They would probably throw away a gold medal if they did that, honestly. Very stacked team. But let's get to the US real quick. Let's run through these guys. Obviously, there's the big names for the forwards, right? You have your Jack Eichels of the world, right? You have these elite forwards for this American team. Austin Matthews is going to make it, assuming that he's healthy. Everyone that you expect, obviously, going to make this. The Tkachuk brothers we talked about a little bit. Who else? Who else are we looking at? Tage Thompson is going to make this as your like locks here for the U.S. here. But what are some of these other guys bottom of the roster that you're looking at that people might be overlooking for this U.S. team?
It's just the bottom six is very. There are so many guys you can fill in, but the thing is about the Wild general manager and then Olympic general manager Bill Guerin. He wants size. He wants players who can play with some physicality, and I think some of these shorter, like undersized guys are kind of going to get screwed off this roster just because he's looking for more of that like guy who can be like a gritty fourth liner. So unfortunately, I just don't have Cole Caulfield or like Alex DeBrincat's having a really good season for Detroit. But the problem is, like, if they're not in a top six role, can they be a hitting bottom six forward? I don't think they can fill that role. Like, yeah, they could be like, you can have all these guys can score in some capacity, but do they have that extra dynamic skill instead of being a one-dimensional player? Can they be a really good defensive player and hold on to a lead? And it hurts me to say this, but I just don't think the Cole Caulfields and Alex DeBrincat's of the world are going to make it. I do have Tage Thompson's a maybe, but I feel like he went to the World Cup of hockey over the summer and scored the game-winning goal to prove like he really wants to make this USA squad. And he's got a fucking cannon. Just put him on the right side on the power play. He's got the hardest shot in the league. Like, just put him on that roster. I have him on the roster. He's got size. He can play with grit. I really like Dylan Larkin as a fourth line center. I feel like he can play that role pretty well. Jason Robertson, I have making the team. He didn't make it last go around, but with the way he's been hot to start the season, the dude just finds a way to score goals at every level. Put my Filipino brother in. Filipino hockey player represent. And then I have Alex Tuck being like that last fourth line right winger, just because he can kill penalties and can play that bottom six role. And God forbid, if I see Chris fucking Kreider on this roster, I am going to like go to Minnesota and tear down Billy Guerin's wall. Because like, why the fuck are you putting this old guy on the roster when you have better players available?
Kyle Connor's a guy that I'd really like to see on this roster. He was a playoff hero for the Jets in the first round many a times last year. You want to talk about big, physical, gritty wings? That's Kyle Connor for you. He's a guy that, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where on the roster. He was, I mean, there's a lot of really talented forwards, so afterthought's kind of a strong word, but he wasn't in that for sure 100% getting in category for me. Is he a guy that's on your list?
Yeah, just with he puts up points. I think he was screwed when he was scratched in the championship game in the Four Nations because when Matthew Tkachuk didn't play the rest of the game with an injury, like wow, what other skilled forward could have we have slotted in his place besides Chris fucking Kreider? Um, Kyle Connor would have fit that role perfectly. Like, yeah, he's a perimeter scorer, but he fucking scores. You got to put him out there. I think Matthew Boldy will continue to have a great tournament just because he'll complement the Chucks with that physical play style. I think Jake Getzel gets in it just because he's a proven Cup champion. He always seems to score in those clutch situations. Um, and it's just like in the scratches, I have Clayton Keller, again, another proven leader. He always finds a way to put up points. I just want him to make the roster because I feel like he's suffered enough in Arizona. And like for years, he's quietly been one of the best American forwards. And he's a playmaker. A lot of these guys who we've cut are kind of already like shoot first goal scorers. Who's going to be that playmaker? I think Clayton Keller could fill that role in a pinch. And then my last forward scratch making that roster is a young gun on the up and coming Anaheim Ducks, Cutter Gauthier, however the fuck you pronounce it. Again, it's like another one of those. I don't know if he'll play all that much, but just to pass that torch along, I want him to be around those guys.
Lots of guys to like, lots of guys that won't make it. We talked a lot about the Hughes, one of the Hughes already on this show. Do all three Hughes brothers make it? Or is one of them going to get left out? We know Quinn Hughes is going to be.
Luke is for sure not making it. Luke is for sure not making it. He hasn't. I don't know what his ceiling is, but he hasn't been. He's been like mid in terms of like a USA defenseman.
Not even a healthy scratch for funsies. Get all three of them in there.
No, he hasn't been like the generational player his brothers are, and that's okay. Like not all like brothers are going to be those generational talents because the group of brothers that came to mind is the Stahl brothers, because you had Eric, who was a like extremely good goal scorer, Jordan Stahl, who won a cup with Pittsburgh, like still playing really good depth, like middle six forward throughout his career. Mark Stahl was a defensive defenseman for the New York Rangers for the longest time, helped defend Henrik Lundqvist. And then there's a fourth one. I can't even remember his fucking name just because he was an AHLer. So it's just like, just because, yeah, he's your brother, that doesn't mean you'll have these high ceilings like Quinn and Jack. But yeah, he's not talked about on the roster. A few other forwards I have are Matthew Nyes. He's had a decent season in Toronto. He's big, and I think Billy Guerin may have him on the roster just because he's big and he'll play physically. But I wouldn't be. He's young, but it's just kind of like I don't know if he's proved enough at the NHL level to justify being on that roster yet. And then JT Miller, I don't know what the hell's wrong with him. He was 2 years ago on Vancouver. He looked like one of the top. Like you couldn't miss him on the USA roster, but I don't know if he's been injured. I don't know if he's just lost a step, but he just doesn't look like the same player, and I don't have him making this roster, even if he's like one of those grittier players. He just hasn't done enough this season to prove to me that he deserves to be on this roster again.
Yeah, well, we will have to see. There's going to be plenty of cuts. Quinn Hughes headlines the defenseman. Charlie McAvoy probably going to be healthy. Adam Fox going to make this team. Those are, I think, the big three for the U.S. as far as defense goes.
You're forgetting two really big names. And, Zach Werenski got nominated for the Norris last season. He had a really underrated season for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I would say he's like easily the third best defenseman behind Makar and Quinn Hughes. So like, don't disrespect Zach Werenski like that. And then Jacob Slavin, I love that man, just because he's such an underrated defenseman. Like defensively, legitimately one of the best defensemen in the league.
Well, Zach Werenski is on my team. I do promise you that. But I did have him on a second pairing line as opposed to one of those first pairs up there. Lots of good talent over there. You had what was it? Not Slavin, Sanderson. Jake Sanderson was the hero in the Four Nations Cup for a brief moment last time out with the U.S. He's probably going to make that team as one of the bottom pairing defensive defenseman guys. What are some other names that you can throw out near the bottom there that aren't an absolute lock right now?
Yeah, it's I'm kind of surprised like how much easier it was to make the USA list because I feel like it's just pretty cut and dry who the top dogs are. I have, Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber, the new defensive pairing. But Brock Faber, Jacob Slavin was an awesome shutdown pair for stretches in that tournament. So it may be fun to have those guys again. But I have Charlie McAvoy. Who knows with his like jaw injury where he will be, but I'm pretty certain he'll make this roster. The two scratches I have, Adam Fox. You already have enough offensive defensemen on this team. I think you just put him up there just because he is a Norris Trophy winner. He's another skill guy. Like, why not have him in the locker room? And then Seth Jones is my final defensive roster spot. Maybe a scratch, maybe you put him in there, but he's a two-time Cup champion. He was largely, when he was on the Blackhawks, I felt bad for him. Even on Columbus too, like people were talking about how much his contract sucked and how much he was overpaid. And then he gets traded to Florida and has a really good playoff run. He's continuing that success this season. I think you have him around. I don't know how big of a role he is, but I have him on this team.
Yeah, he should make the team there. Like you said, pretty cut and dry when it comes to defensemen. I think there's going to be some conversation around Seth Jones potentially making the team. Jackson Lacombe potentially making the team. I don't think either of them do, but you could definitely think about putting some of those guys in. Maybe even a Lane Hudson who won the Rookie of the Year last year.
The Lane Hudson one's been pretty contentious in the media. I think Canadians fans are crazy, and they want their star player to play. I just feel like you already have too many players who fill his role, and no offense to Lane Hudson, who's a phenomenal player, but you have players who already fill his role better than what he can do.
Yeah, we will. We'll finish up this roster. We'll take a review of what the roster looks like in January. But let's finish it up with the goaltenders. And I love some USA goaltenders. We've got Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, 1-2 in my brain. I don't care who you start. One of those two should go in, and you can't go wrong with either of them. Mwah, what a room. It's a beautiful hockey goaltending room. We need this. I need this in my life. I absolutely love that pairing. I don't think this is too tough of a choice for the U.S.
Yeah. Because, we can stop at those two, but, you can add a third goalie to your roster and, just being spoiled with Jeremy Swayman or up-and-coming Spencer Knight, who's been phenomenal for the Blackhawks this year. And your boy, John Gibson, he's been hot as of late. Maybe he sneaks his way as the third goalie.
Give him a legacy spot.
Yeah, but you can only play one goalie. So it's just like Hellebuck, Ottinger, that is enough.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You can't. I love them. I love them both. Those are my goalies here. But let's close out our show here with, as we always do in the Crease, with a little bit of a standings update. We teased it at the beginning of the show here, so let's just start right there. The Atlantic Division has a new man on top, and it's the Detroit Red Wings, Shane. It's the Detroit Red Wings. They are leading the Atlantic a little bit less than halfway through the season. This is insane. When we were talking about this, the Red Wings and the Boston Bruins at the beginning of the season, I believe were at the bottom of our list. Outside of the Buffalo Sabres, they were near the bottom of our Atlantic standings. And now they're at the top, 1-2. What is going on in the Atlantic? Why are they so drunk?
The Eastern Conference doesn't make sense to me.
No,
Because whatever you thought would happen got turned on its head.
literally
And
upside down.
I mean, it's still close. Like all these teams are, I've never seen it this close, this late into the season, where like every team is within like what 6 points of each other.
You take the entire Eastern Conference. The biggest gap is the Hurricanes with 44 points to the Sabres at 32. That's a 6-game gap. That's all that is.
Yeah, because I'm like, the Leafs have been so bad this year. I don't know what's going on with Austin Matthews. He hasn't looked like himself. As that team is really missing Mitch Marner more than they thought, and they just haven't gotten consistent goaltending. Ottawa's kind of a similar story where they've had a lot of injuries up front, missing their captain and Brady Tkachuk for a large portion of the season, and they just haven't gotten the goaltending yet. Montreal, God, talk about awful goaltending. Like, that's why they're kind of middling in the standings. Florida is coming back, though. We kind of said we were worried about the injury problems and guys trying to fulfill the roles of their two best players. They've been hot lately. But, enough about them. Let's talk about how well the surprising teams have been played. I'm really going to never hear the end of how wrong I was about the Boston Bruins. Like Morgan Geekie, I don't think anyone would have told, if you told somebody that Morgan Geekie would be a 50-goal scorer by the end of the season, I'd call you, say you're fucking out of your mind.
I agree. I
But
also would have said the same
he may
thing.
legitimately put 50 goals up this season, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, who are you, and what have you done with the real Morgan Geekie? And then we kind of forgot that Jeremy Swayman is actually like a good goaltender, and David Pastrnak will do David Pastrnak like things.
Yeah.
So like Jeremy Swayman got paid for a reason, and he's kind of proven why he got that fat contract last season. And then Detroit, as we were saying for the longest time, like John Gibson has gotten hot recently. Like, why the fuck has no one taken him out of Anaheim sooner? Like, we knew he could do this. We've been saying this for the past 5 years. And I'm still concerned about their depth, but they have a great top line in Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat. If that line's clicking and you got goaltending, Moritz Seider's taking another step. Like, that's a pretty good. I don't know if I want to call it good, but it's just like they're a playoff team. It's nothing compared to the West, though.
No, the West is wild. But we'll get there in a second. The Bruins and the Red Wings at the top of the division. Some of those contenders you might expect. The Lightning sitting 39 points, 2 points back of the Red Wings, 1 point back of the Bruins. They'll probably still find a way into the playoffs. They're dealing with injuries. Hedman on the IR for the long term. He's getting surgery. Vasilevsky has been in and out of the lineup with injuries. He's been good when he's out there. The Maple Leafs have struggled. The Panthers, we talked about, injured, getting better, getting slightly healthier, something to keep an eye on. Is there going to be a late season run from the Panthers or the Leafs to try and take control of this division, as they're still within striking distance right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't count a lot of these teams out just because I've seen so many of them collapse before. Like Philadelphia, I'm really glad that they're having success. I'm so happy for Trevor Zegras having the success he's had in Florida. They're kind of like a young, scrappy group. And I've just seen it before where they go on a 10-game win streak and then they randomly have that 10-game losing streak and fall out of playoff contention. I don't know if I trust it yet. The Islanders is a fun team to watch right now. Like, Bo Horvat wasn't in a lot of Olympic roster conversations, and then he's kind of solidified his name in those spots just because he's been scoring so much lately. And then Schaefer has been a phenom. Like, that 18-year-old with how fast he moves. And Ilya Sorokin, he's a Vezina caliber goalie. Like, but it's still very close. Like, Capitals, they're only a point back from getting right into the top three. Penguins, yeah, they overachieved at the start of the season. I think they're dead in the water. They're just going to keep on going further and further down this list. Uh, and then Montreal's got to figure out their goaltending. Like, they're a talented team. They just got to figure out that goaltending.
Yeah, we'll like I said, the Canadian, there's this team, really the entire Eastern Conference, separated by 12 points top to bottom. We're gonna come back, and these standings are gonna be completely different when we do this next month. I can guarantee you that. But right now, moment in history: the Red Wings, number 1 in the Atlantic, the Boston Bruins, number 2. The Red Wings have a -4 goal differential right now on the season. And they're on top of the division. That kind of tells you where the Eastern Conference is right now. It's drunk. It's a mess. The Metro looks a little bit more normal. You talked about the Islanders that are fun to watch. The Flyers have their on and off years, but again, I'm not super sold on them. The Caps just went on a long run. They're kind of cooling off now. They've lost 3 in a row, but they had like a 10 or 12 game point streak heading into this losing streak right now before they ran into the Hurricanes, number 1 in the entire Eastern Conference for a hot second there. The Rangers have struggled, and the Devils have struggled as of late. Do any of those New York, New Jersey teams make a push in the Metro?
I have no faith in the Rangers. The Devils, it's just if you're Jack Hughes, it's kind of they live and die by Jack Hughes, unfortunately. Like he is an MVP caliber player when healthy. He just, hasn't been healthy. And it's so dumb how it seems like he's cursed because his injury was such a fluke. It was a steak knife at a team dinner. I don't know what the fuck he was doing, but it just really goes to show how much they're hurting for scoring without him.
Yeah. And that's been the big issue with them, like forever. They've been hurt for like the last 3 seasons. Ever since they made their big run, they've been hurt all season long. They can't just quite get there. And I don't know. I want to say they'll be able to bounce back, but
Maybe too little, too late at this point. If just everyone's so competitive, um, it's just if you don't get these points now, you got a lot of catching up to do, and it may be too little, too late.
right. But the silver lining, they're just 3 points back of a playoff spot right now. So it's again not like it's quite out of reach. Everyone in the East kind of mid. Moving over to the West, the Colorado Avalanche. Do they break the wins record this year? 62 wins. I'm not saying points record, but wins record. 62 wins. I mean, they'd probably break the points record if they beat the wins record, but they're so good. they're so good, man.
Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar.
That's
that
a
is
deadly
a scary
duo.
duo.
It's terrifying. This team is elite at all levels. It's got depth. The goaltending is playing well right now. I mean, what can't this team do? 53 points.
It's so hard to find a flaw in that team right now. It really scares me as a Wild fan that we have to put up with that team in the same division, eventually go against them in the first 2 rounds.
They haven't lost a game in regulation at home yet. This team is so good. It's almost unfair. Like you can't get enough of this Colorado team. They're the Cup favorites right now. The Dallas Stars not too far behind them. 4 points back right now. They've also been good, but I mean, not nearly as good as this Colorado Avalanche team. The Wild we talked about a lot. They go out and add this elite scorer, elite playmaker, elite defenseman in Quinn Hughes to this team. They're going to get a huge boost. Those are the top 3. They've already separated themselves from the rest of their division. 10-point difference between the Utah Mammoth in 4th and the Minnesota Wild in 3rd in that division. How far can these teams separate from the rest of the West right now?
It's a 3-headed monster right now. I just don't see any of these other teams in the Central catching up. Like maybe when Hellebuck comes back, the Jets can go on a run, but I just don't see any of these guys competing with the top three. And I think you and I both had these teams, and a lot of others had these teams in the top three of the division. Um, yeah, no surprises here. It's going to be a fun playoff to watch with those three teams.
More surprise in the Pacific. We talked about it last time. The Ducks still on top. We kind of talked about it like a fluke after 1 month. It's 2 months in. They're still leading that Pacific Division, Shane. Can we crown them as for real yet, or is it still premature?
I am crowning them as a for real playoff team. It's just they're not playing like a team that is um like young and inexperienced. They're playing with talent, they're playing with grit. Everything they seem to be shooting seems to go in, and it's hard to find a flaw like on paper with this roster. Like Lucas Dostal has been playing really well in net. You got Jackson Lacombe, who's an underrated number one defenseman. You got Zellweger. You've got McTavish. Troy Terry's having a phenomenal year, point per game player, and just feeding off of the energy from the Cutter Gauthiers, the Beckett Senecas, Mason McTavish. I think they're a legit playoff team. Whether or not they can make a deep run with the more veteran teams like Vegas or the Oilers is yet to be seen. But I think they are one of the more excited teams to watch and one of the better stories of the NHL right now.
I'm not convinced. Maybe I should be. Maybe I should be. I'm a famous Ducks supporter. But I I'm not
Really?
convinced with this team.
I never thought I would see the day where we would flip flop on. I would be more sold on the Ducks than you are. What the hell is happening, Jeremy?
They lost John Gibson, I guess. I guess I was a John Gibson guy. Uh, but no, this team is great. It is. I just I feel like they're one misstep away from collapse. And maybe that's just the Duck brand. Maybe that's what it is because they've been bad for the last 10 seasons. But
I mean,
something
they're
just
young.
feels off about the way this team is succeeding. They feel
They're
like they're
young.
getting by with the skin of their teeth rather than dominating the way you would expect a first place team a third of the way through the season to be dominating.
Yeah, but I think with how like tight and inconsistent every other team in the NHL has been, they've been doing enough and have been more consistent than their opponents. And I forgot to mention Leo Carlson. Like I just keep on naming players who are just legitimate guys on that roster. And it was just in my mind, if they haven't fallen off yet, I just don't see them doing that. And like Lucas Dostal, like I kind of knew going in he would be the heir to John Gibson and that they would be fine in net. And having consistent goaltending will do you so many favors. Like that on top of scoring a bunch like these young guys have had. I I see them like, of course they're not dominated. Not every team can be Colorado and just dominate,
Right.
but they're a playoff team in my eyes. They play like a playoff team. I don't see any other team in this conference that is more complete than they are. Like they're just as good as the Kings in my eyes, the Sharks and the Mammoth. Like they're just as complete as those guys. I don't see why they shouldn't deserve a playoff spot at this race.
I guess it's less the fact that I think they're not a playoff team and more the fact that I don't think they're going to win the Pacific. I think that's what it comes down to.
Oh, no.
Seeing them at the top of the Pacific, I think is what's throwing me off. I'm not bought in on that. They're a playoff team. And I think if we're on the same page there, we're kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
I just don't I can't imagine checking back in on the standings next month when we do our show and seeing the Anaheim Ducks still ahead of the Oilers and still ahead of the Knights right now. I could see them ahead of the Kings, but ahead of both the Knights and the Oilers, I
Mitch
just don't.
Marner.
I'm just not bought in on that.
Mitch Marner has yet to like pop off yet. Like his numbers are good, but they're not like Mitch Marner level, like what he's capable of yet. I think he's still getting used to developing that chemistry with his team. And they've had inconsistent goaltending, but I think once Vegas figures out their issues like we know they can, they'll be back to dominating that division. And the Oilers, we always know that they're a second half team. They just go on a ridiculous win streak for whatever. They always start slow and then have a ridiculous win streak the second half of the season. And who knows, maybe Jari becomes a Vezina candidate. Like who knows?
He's
Like
liable to
maybe
go on a run, and
like
anyone is
maybe
liable to get Connor
yeah,
McDavid at any night.
yeah. Like the Penguins just did.
Right.
McDavid all over Pittsburgh, and he can do that every night. So I have no worries about the Oilers.
Yeah, but those that's where we stand as we take a look at the standings. If the season ended today, if it ended today, you're looking at in the East, the Canadiens as that last team in, the Penguins as the first team out, and the Sharks as the last team in, and the Mammoth as the first team out when it comes to the playoffs. If it ended today, top three in each division, Kings and Sharks as the wild cards, and the Caps and the Canadiens as the wild cards. Do your predictions change too much? Are you still riding with the same expectations you had preseason right now, as far as Cup finals go?
Just Cup Finals or who's in the playoffs?
Just Cup finals.
I can't even remember. I think I had Dallas or did you have Dallas? I can't even remember who my finals predictions were, but I feel like the contenders are the contenders. Um, and I have a feeling that the cream will rise to the top, and I think it's good. I just feel like the Central Division is going to be such a bloodbath, but they're clearly some of the better teams in the league. I think it's going to be a Western Conference team this year. I just feel like they're heads and shoulders above what the East has shown. But I think that's shown that they beat each other to a pulp, and then the Eastern Conference team kind of has a easier time with them.
Yeah, I that is what's happened. The West is a bloodbath. I in the preseason had Canes coming out of the East and the Knights coming out of the West. I've got to change that to the Avalanche the way that they're playing right now. That's the big switch.
The President's Trophy curse, though.
I don't care about the President's Trophy curse with how good the Avs are playing right now. Maybe I'll care about it when playoff time comes, but they're the best team in hockey right now, and I can't.
I think the Boston Bruins would beg to differ.
The Boston Bruins can beg to differ, but I'll leave them begging on the street. Their calls will not be answered here with me. This is going to be really interesting. This hockey season as a whole has been really interesting. We're almost halfway through, a little bit more than a third, a little bit less than a half. When we are back in January, we will be more than halfway through the season. Olympic rosters will be set. More trades will have come through. We'll break down that and everything else. Shane, you have any final thoughts here to leave the people with before we call it a day?
I'm going to have a lot of fun watching the Wild with Quinn Hughes. I am so excited just to see him just rip it up with Carell on the power play.
It's going to be a good one. We will be back some point in January. Keep an eye out. We will be here when the time is right. This schedule worked out perfectly. Right after that Quinn Hughes trade, we couldn't have picked a better day to do it. But thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in to today's episode of In the Crease. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus and Shane Brisland. We'll be back next month, breaking down all of the hockey talk, everything you need to know from around the world of hockey, the NHL, even a little bit of Olympics. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.